Hello, I'm Damien Breach and welcome to How to Do a Mountain Bike Selfie. So what do you need to do a selfie? There's two different ways that I do selfies. The first way is the simplest way, and all you need is a camera. For you who shoot with Canon, it might be a little bit difficult, but with a Nikon or a Sony, you can do it just with a camera. The second way I do my selfies is using remote controls. And I use Pocket Wizards. But you can use other products out there in the market, but I use Pocket Wizards because I've had them all the time for my flash photography and they work really, really well. The other thing you're going to need is a trigger for your handlebar. Next, you need some tools to attach everything to your bike. And finally, I forgot because I dropped it, it's just a little cable to connect your Pocket Wizards to your camera. Oh, I forgot one thing, tripod. You'd need one of these bastards. So this is the first type of selfie. This is the type of selfie where the action doesn't really matter. It's all about the scenery. It's about just trying to frame in the right sort of photo. So it doesn't really matter where I am necessarily in the shot, or particularly what my body position is. It's just about framing a nice scene and making sure that, you know, I'm in the frame. So what I use for this is my camera and a tripod. It's that easy. So basically I set up the camera to frame the photo I want to take, and also what I'm going to do at the same time is do my focus. So with this sort of photography, it's really hard to track the action or to track the rider anyway, so I'm setting up pre-focus. So I find a spot somewhere on the trail. I'm also shooting about f8, so again this is all about the scenery. So I've set up the focus point, turn the camera to manual so it doesn't want to do any sort of autofocus later on. So the Nikon has what's called an intervalometer, so it can take photos at irregular intervals depending on how I tell it to take the photos. So for this scenery, I'm going to tell it to take about 3 photos a second. So now I've set up the camera, I've framed it all, and I've set the internal intervalometer, take 3 photos every second. This is actually the whole sequence of events. Starting it, wait for it to start, go get my bike. That's one take. So now you have to go and review it to see if any of them worked out. So this method's a bit hit and miss. So that's why it only works best when it's just really about the scenery, more so than about the riding. I've done the easy method, which is what I showed you before, which was basically just using the camera and a tripod and the camera's internal intervalometer. I'm going to show you the more complicated method, but the one that captures action and it's more precise for that actual really, you know, banger shot that you want. So this one is where we use the Pocket Wizards and a trigger on the handlebars. So I'm going to show you how I set that up. I want to mount this trigger on my thumb. So I've got to move my grip and move a few things to actually mount this. Now I've got my trigger in place, now I need to put my Pocket Wizard on. And there's a couple of different ways I do this. One of the quickest and easiest ways I do it is to put it on next to my stem here, just using a couple of rubber bands. It sits there just like that. One of the really things I want to explain, I really want to emphasize, is this trigger. Rather than being a button that you hit while you're riding or while you're doing action, this is actually an on-off switch. So it has an on state and an off state. When I hit this trigger, you'll hear a beep, which means that the Pocket Wizard is transmitting. So it's on now, off, on, off. And what that means I can hit the trigger and return my thumb and my grip back to its normal position before I do the riding that I want to photograph. So I'm just going to emphasize again why I choose an on-off switch. So this time when the Pocket Wizard is connected to my camera, and I've set my camera to the fastest motor drive that I have, which on this camera it's an old one, it's quite slow, but you'll hear when I hit the trigger, the camera's now going off and it's going to keep taking photos until the memory card starts filling up, and then it slows down. So again, it's important to have a fast camera and fast cards and so forth to do this sort of stuff. So again, with this method, same as the other method, you still have to set up your shot. So what I do is I frame the photo, set up the camera, have all the connections connected, and again I pre-focus. Sometimes I'll put my bike in the scene, or I get somebody to stand. Generally I'm by myself, that's why I'm taking a selfie. So I put my bike up there and pre-focus on it and switch the camera back to manual. Now we've got to check, see if it worked. Done. Time to get a beer. So I've just set up in a different spot here, and I've actually got a slightly different Pocket Wizard setup. I've just got some different models of Pocket Wizard, and it's actually mounted rather than being with a rubber band around my stem. The one that's made for a cycling computer, it's actually firmly mounted there, so it's a lot sturdier setup. So I'm actually going to try in a corner, and this is with a fisheye. So again, it's all pre-focused, but focus doesn't really matter so much with the fisheye. You just set the aperture, like, I know this I think is like f5, and then pretty much everything's going to be in focus. So the same thing, I come into the scene, I turn my camera on, ride the scene, turn my camera off. Good-o! Well, there you go, that's the mountain bike selfie. Well, that's my version of the mountain bike selfie. Two different ways. One's just using the camera in an intervalometer, and that's best for stuff that's scenic and more in the distance. And one's with the Pocket Wizards and a trigger on the handlebar.